I'm very confident that we have those votes. I'm very confident that we're going to get this passed.
We've got to make life more affordable for everyday Americans who are suffering under crushing Republican policies.
Representative Buddy Carter at first saying we have the votes in the House to open the government. Hakeem Jeffries saying not so quickly. We don't have things affordable for the American people. I'm not sure that this shooting match is over and things are going to open up. We'll see what Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman and y'all have to say on Wake Up Missouri this morning. 573-874-9390. I know you'll want to weigh in on this. Should the House rubber stamp what happened in the Senate? Should they amend it and send it back? It sounds like it may not be a done deal. We'll be covering that as any news comes out. Talking to Mark Alford, in fact, at 7:35. Congressman Alford, of course, probably knows a little bit more about this than any of us speculators out there, don't you think? I'm thinking he might. At 7:08, we talk with Scott Fitzpatrick, who's the state auditor. He is in a little bit of a dispute with the governor and the administration, right, Stephanie?
Yes.
What's going on there?
He's trying to conduct a few audits and sent over some requests for information to the Department of Revenue, I think related to checks that were more than 12 years old, and then another program that's administered by the Department of Revenue. He said he's getting kind of a brick wall when he's asking them for information, so he's now sued to force them to try to cooperate.
And then, of course, we talked a little bit a couple weeks ago, maybe it was a little more than that, when the state evaluation, the numbers on student performance, school performance came out, and they were touted. The headlines said favorable, John. But Susan Pendergrass from Show Me is going to help us break that down. Maybe get an update on how the charter situation in Columbia is going as well.
We're hearing a lot about schools all across the state doing really well, and one of them at the head of the list, Stephanie's kids at Southern Boone and Ashland, just got some big numbers from the state study.
Wow. I have a big question for her. I'm wondering if the thresholds and the standards are the same. I'm just saying. I want to know.
What does that mean? You think they're like dumbing it down so my kids get good
I'm not talking
scores?
about your kids. I'm not worried about your kids. Just worried about standards being held steady.
You know, I'm just really excited because they went to this goofy grading system a couple of years ago.
What's that?
At the school, and there was no A, B, C, D, E.
Really?
It was just 4, 3, 2, 1. And they said three's fine. And in my mind, if it's 4, 3, 2, 1, then 3 is a B. And they were trying to tell us, well, 3 is not a B. Well, it sure looks like a B because it's not a 4. And they're like, no, in order to get a 4, you have to go above and beyond.
Wow.
And, so now you've got all these millennial parents like me and all of my friends who grew up with A, B, C, D. And we're like, but this doesn't make any sense. And they've reverted this year back to A, B, C, D. Yeah, thank goodness.
Really interesting.
Was this
Randy, remember in our era with ESMIF? Did you have that one in your school system?
What? No.
ESMIF.
What was that?
For a time. The ABC.
Oh, no. Oh, I was our system was simple. It was A, B, C, D, F, and then it was you got scores for effort and citizenship, right? 1, 2, 3.
I do like they do get I don't have it with me. They do get like a 3, 2, or a 1 for I think respectful, responsible, and there's one other one. And I'm like, I really don't care if you get a B, but if you get marks off for being disrespectful or, whatever, I'm going to be mad about that.
Well, I sort of like the academic grade on the one hand and then the effort grade. People like Drake who the best they could muster is a C, but if they got a 1 in effort, then that's good. Right, Drake?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you know very well how that system can play in your advantage. You get a 1 and hey, give me a guy that gets a B or a C, but's giving it his all. I'm
need to
that
remember, Doctor, this is the son of a teacher you're talking to
kidding.
here.
Yeah.
Now, you know me by now. I would not say that if I didn't know different about Drake.
Yeah, he actually does look at my report cards. They're all C's. No. So they have like a number system. Isn't that just GPA, Stephanie?
No.
That sounds like okay. But I have a really big gripe, and I experienced this in my school. With the grading system, you can go to a 4.0, and that's it. And I completely agree with that. If you get straight A's, it's a 4.0. That's perfect. And then you go to college, and there's people like, oh, yeah, I had a 5.13, or I had above a 4. I don't understand it.
That's the advanced placement or something, isn't it? Like if you do Isn't there a way that you can get more than a 4 in that GPA model?
Not in Salisbury, Missouri, I can tell you that.
Yeah, there's a way you can get extra credit. Yeah.
No.
Well,
Double secret extra credit. Well, there's a lot of kids who go into college with as many as 30 or more college credits, that they've done while they're in high school.
And, that's such a good idea because with the cost of higher education, if you can pack some of those credits into the high school years and not have to pay that extra tuition, it seems like for my kids, they were trying to stretch things out to 5 years. They found a way, but by the time you took all of your requireds and then your electives and it's going to probably take you 5 years. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Oh, I would disagree with that, though, because college is more than just about, like, getting your credits. It's about kind of, like, learning to deal with, like, adult life and live independently and all of that. I think most people benefit by spending 4 years at an institution. I might feel differently once they're on my payroll.
You just said 4 years, right? You think 5 years is better?
Oh, I don't think 5 years.
No, that's
but
what
I'm
I was just saying.
A lot of people get those AP credits and try to graduate in like 3 years or whatever.
Well, no, I'm just saying these days, if you don't go in with some AP credits or some early college credits, you might have to stay 5 years. That's the problem.
Change your major 3 times.
They make it so complicated to get those things. It's like trying to figure out the Odyssey, read a little Homer to try to figure out the college curriculum if you want to get exactly what you need to where you're trying to go. I also read a little
What
piece.
does The Simpsons have to do with this?
Yeah. I also saw a piece. I only saw one news story, but something about Governor Kehoe making some noise about his road to no income tax. Did you see? He talked about it earlier in his term, but now again he's resurfaced.
Yeah, that broke yesterday.
Did you see that?
Yeah, and he is saying we've got a path forward. And that's been a hot topic because even amongst the Republican caucus, we've got folks who say, that's a huge chunk of our budget, unlike where some other states went to zero. So how do you replace that income? He says he has a plan to do it.
Well, I would
We
just
also heard from State Rep Griffith yesterday, who kind of hinted at there's some tax bills, I think was his line, coming down the pike.
And if you recall historically, I mean, Missouri, the legislature we have now, the folks who've been around for a minute, have passed some of the biggest individual income tax cuts we've had in history, right? And so they've set up these triggers that if we hit certain numbers, that number kind of ratchets down. But you get other people arguing, like Scott Fawn, who we have on Mondays, that says it doesn't matter, if we ratchet it down 0.25% or 1%, it's either, Scott Fawn says you haven't seen the benefits of lowering the income tax, essentially. And I think he and Jennifer Bukowski often get in this debate, and she says, really, to get the full benefit, you got to go to zero.
That's right. I would agree with Jen on that one because, I'm just going on the empiric observation that Tennessee and Texas are doing pretty well on that count. They're doing pretty well on that no income tax. I mean, when you punish productivity, you're not likely to attract the most productive people and industries. You're going to get people that are going to be happy with our generally low property tax and our gas tax. And, I think our overall tax burden, one of our Show Me Institute experts once said that I think it was David Stokes said, as an overall tax burden, we're not too bad in the 50 states in our ranking, But maybe that depends on where you are in your demographic, what your income level is. Now, I'm looking at a bunch of beautiful pictures and I'm feeling I am maximized FOMO at this moment. I didn't see the Northern Light thing last night.
How in the world did you miss that? It's all I saw.
I don't know. I was inside prepping for the show, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I saw the early part of it. It started out with pretty spectacular sunset,
it's still going on right now, though, right? If you go outside, can you see it? I didn't check this morning to see if we could see it.
I didn't either.
I don't think so. I didn't see any pink
They
paintbrush
said
in the sky.
This big storm was going to continue through today.
Yeah, well, I wonder if it'll be through tonight. Maybe if Tony Lupo's listening, he can weigh in on that.
It's pretty dark outside. I wonder. I'm going to run out during the break and see if we can see it.
I don't know. I didn't see it when I jumped in the car this morning. We'll have to see. But some spectacular pictures. Thank you for sending those. We got a picture from Chris. Beautiful pictures.
Got some good ones from Drake, too.
Drake had a dandy picture there. That's awesome. Man, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So, yeah, big solar storm. We were talking about shortwave radio yesterday. That messes up shortwave radio for sure, but no matter. You can stream us. You can watch us on YouTube. You can watch us on Facebook. I don't think that affects any of that kind of. Does it affect cellular communications? No, I don't think so.
Randy,
Only radio waves.
Did you freak out when you saw the solar lights and all that? Did you think that the world was ending or something?
There was a little bit of that chatter on Twitter yesterday.
Whoa, really? This is Armageddon time?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Gary T sends us some other spectacular. Look at that. It looks like a flash of white in all of the pinkness.
Neat.
Holy cow.
I know from my
great-
Sioux heritage, the Sioux believe the Northern Lights are the spirits of the yet to be born.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess that wouldn't be Armageddon then. It'd be Arma Welcome.
There you go.
The soon to be born. All right. Well, we're looking forward to talking to Scott Fitzpatrick, state auditor, and Mark Alford. That's at 7:35. Mr. Fitzpatrick at 7:08. And at 8:08, we talked to Susan Pendergrass because, yes, education matters. Even though you do have an AI chat bot on your phone, education matters. On Wake Up Missouri, 573-874-9390. Be back. Daily DC Rundown.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
just political malpractice. Here you have Donald Trump on the ropes, scrambling, trying to make some deal. And we basically say, well, we don't care if the premiums go up. Like, what do we stand for? So he needs to be replaced and step down. More Democrats need to be calling for that. The only reason they aren't calling for it, let me be blunt, is because you offend a lot of donors. There are a lot of billionaires. There are a lot of donors that contribute to the DSCC, that contribute to Chuck Schumer.
There's Ro Khanna. Here's Stephanie Bell with the Daily DC Rundown.
Well, technically, it is the 43rd day of the government shutdown. Schumer and some other Democrats are in hot water. There's still a lot of consternation, not only amongst Democrats, but amongst Republicans. We still have to get a vote of the House, who's been out for nearly 6 weeks. They are expected to vote today. That package still has to go to the president's desk and get signed before we come to an official end of the shutdown. It is expected air travel ahead of Thanksgiving is a mess, and it's expected to take weeks for air travel to get back to normal. There's been not only a lot of delays, but because of the issues with air traffic control, many airlines announced major cuts in the flights that they are offering. One study is now looking at other forms of travel. Apparently, one-way Hertz car rentals are up 20% from the same time last year, and bus and train reservations around Thanksgiving are up 12% and as high as 30% on the busy travel days. Also up are the prices. Those train and bus prices are up 10% in the last week. So people are turning to alternatives, but because of that high demand, we're seeing higher prices.
You saying Amtrak is gouging?
I think they'd call it dynamic pricing.
Oh,
perhaps.
dynamic pricing it is. I like that. Dynamic pricing.
It's all about...
when you and Jen were back east, we were kind of about half joking on the air if you guys were going to have to get a car to get back.
That's right. We were concerned, and it was a hot topic of discussion out there. Like, I got out here, but I'm worried about being able to get back. And there were a lot of different things going on the East Coast. I think the day before we got into D.C., they had that bomb threat at Reagan, and it shut the whole place down for a bit, on top of all of the other issues.
Well, remember Brad Jones told us yesterday from NFIB he's going to a conference in Scottsdale. They're driving, right?
It's horrible.
They're just driving. I'm not going to mess with the waits or the delays.
No, thank you. If you give me, maybe if I got like one of those really sweet like tour buses, maybe I could. That wouldn't be bad.
Big comfy
but
coaches.
Still, how long is it going to take you to get to Scottsdale? All right. Also, with respect to this government shutdown, part of this package includes a federal ban on certain hemp products. So the provision in the Senate funding bill would recriminalize the intoxicating hemp-derived products like Delta-8 THC. That was talked about, I think, last year at the state level. Those were originally legalized under the 2018 Farm Bill. Senator Rand Paul wanted to remove that criminalization provision. Ted Cruz and him were the only ones who voted against it when the Senate passed the funding bill package on Monday. So these are not all non-intoxicating CBD products, and hemp products aren't really my specialty, but the stuff we heard about at the state level are those gas station and store hemp products, and so this bill would target those. Yeah,
that's those synthetic and semi-synthetic things that can be sometimes either laced with some bad stuff or themselves much more potent and addictive. Yeah, right.
The hemp industry is warning that this $30 billion legal hemp market could disappear if the House passes the spending package with this provision in it. McConnell was one of the ones who championed hemp legalization in that farm bill in 2018, but now says he wants to close this loophole, allowing companies to create these intoxicating substances.
I thought it was neat that one of the growers that they interviewed about the intoxicating hemp products was based in Rosebud, Missouri. That's pretty cool.
Rosebud down there on 50 between Jefferson City and Union.
Yep.
Yeah, I've passed through there.
That's a nice little community.
Yeah, they've got like a gas station and like an antique store.
Yeah, they got a lot of little antique stores and some diners and stuff. It's a very nice community. See what hemp can do for you?
We're also hearing more about these Obamacare subsidies. The Democrats want to propose a 3-year extension. Those are set to expire by January 1. The package includes a promise to vote on something.
On the Senate side, right? The
Yeah.
House is going, you guys can vote all you want.
Yes.
There's no promises in the House.
But certainly, I hope we know where Republicans are on Obamacare subsidies, and I think the issue really is I think it's much larger, and we've been talking about it this week, Randy, than just these subsidies. But what do we do about our healthcare issues more globally? And I think we've got to come up with creative solutions. I don't think just voting to.
There's a great roadmap. Great
Okay.
roadmap. And I've got a little bit from Tim Burchett. I love Congressman Burchett. We ought to get him and John Kennedy on a panel sometime. That would be great fun. In fact, we'll talk about Tim Burchett when we come back, and a little bit about healthcare. Stay tuned for more.
I think just local news is
Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri as we await the congressmen and women getting back into D.C. Actually, these travel delays and cancellations, I think, are affecting a lot of that migration back in by Congress people to vote on the Senate an amended continuing resolution, which will fund agriculture for a year, military building projects, and veterans. And I think there's a couple other people will get their jobs that lost them as a part of the Trump effort to take advantage of the shutdown and do permanent reduction in force. So we're waiting to see, if this vote's going to be a slam dunk, like many, I think, maybe theorized it would be at first. But in the meantime, we're going to see if we can get in touch with Mark Alford at 7:35. At 7:08, in just a little bit, we'll talk with Scott Fitzpatrick about his dust-up with some access to data that he says he needs that Governor Keogh's administration is not giving him. So we'll figure out a little bit more about that. And in the meantime, the answer is waiting as far as health care. And Stephanie mentioned it before the break that it seems as though the Republicans don't have a plan, but I really think they do. And I really think it's actually pretty simple. They have a hard time messaging it. Maybe some of them who aren't in the medical business have a hard time understanding it. Maybe some of them think that because
we're too stupid. What? If we're not in the medical industry?
No. I mean the legislators. The legislators. And I think part of it may be that they're not. I don't understand the law.
We know.
And I try to be pretty. I weigh in on that. You tell me how stupid I am when I don't understand it. So that's okay. That's cool.
Any chance we get, Randy.
I know.
We'll call you.
No, and I admit it. I don't know about the law, so I don't try to be an expert, although sometimes I have to throw in, right? We all have to be an expert in things we don't know about.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, Randy.
There you go. But no, I think a lot of it, too, has to be that the expectation of the people, including Republican voters, is that somehow the government is going to come up with a plan to fix their health care. Well, what if the government just creates some guardrails and let people fix their own health care? What a novel idea. It seems to work in buying clothes and shoes and, for the most part, food, although the government screwed that up with their food policy. So it's not that hard. But here's Tim Burchett, Congressman Burchett from Tennessee.
It seems kind of crazy, but in the future, maybe we ought to bring the patients and the doctors to the table and tell the insurance companies they can go take a flying leap because they've screwed this program up by their greed and the politicians' greed who are getting funded in their campaigns by them. That's what needs to happen, ma'am. And we've got plans out there that'll work, I believe, if we could just get them to the table. I think we've had enough hearings. I think we need to just start bringing stuff to the table and start voting on it. That's what America elected us to do. And I think both parties would have to suck it up a little bit. I think
right.
Everybody talks real tough on this issue, ma'am, but nobody wants to do anything about it. In reality, the leadership's afraid of it. They want to kick that can down the road, but the American public is suffering in both parties.
Yeah, I mean, so it's really not all that hard. I mean, I think that what would happen in a world where you kept a lot of your premium dollar and you bought into some maybe underwriting capped catastrophic plans. So, yeah, if you choose to smoke and you raise your risk of having heart disease and lung cancer, you probably ought to pay a little bit more than the person who doesn't smoke, right? I mean, I think that's a fair thing.
I don't think it's that easy, though, because what you're saying is somebody's got to determine whether you're doing something that's healthy or unhealthy. Mm-hmm. And I think there's some agreement on certain things like smoking. Yeah. But now I think there's not agreement because at one point the government would have said you're riskier and you're more expensive if you don't get the jab. We heard yesterday that the government really messed up with, and the medical community really messed up with respect to hormones for women in menopause. And back then they would have said, if you're taking these hormones, they're risky, you should be more expensive. And what we're learning now is actually, no, we should have been taking these things the whole time and it's healthier to take them. And so again, when we get back to like the truth czar, right? When we talk about that, who decides what's true? Setting this system up like you're talking about essentially puts the government in the role of deciding what's healthy for you and what's not, potentially.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying.
Right.
Well, you're arguing for an absolute laissez-faire system because with the government not having any involvement. Well, in that case, people that have autoimmune diseases, people that get brain tumors, I mean, people that have a genetic risk for having biliary cirrhosis, they're not going to get coverage if you don't have some cap on those kind of things, what are called pre-existing conditions. But what you could do is you could have guaranteed issue, and you could have high-risk pools, which were not implemented properly when they were tried out, first of all. But on this kind of a plan, you would pair health savings accounts so you could spend pre-tax money with catastrophic plans. And for those people in ultra high-risk situations, then you would have high-risk pools. And those could be funded by about a $10 per month surcharge, it's estimated, between $10 and $15 per month. I'd be happy to pay into something like that for a kid who's born with congenital cytomegalovirus infection and has blindness, for a kid who's born with muscular dystrophy. I wouldn't have a problem with paying $10 or $20 into a high-risk pool. And that way you'd cover folks like that. And maybe you'd say that, well, if John and I are older folks, and so we're going to have to pay, we would have to pay maybe no more than 2.5 times what Drake's going to pay at age, how old are you, 21? Yeah. That would make sense. I'm going to pay a little more because I'm probably going to use more health care. And I've had time to save up a little money and build a career that I can do that. That's fair.
What about this? I heard an interesting proposal in the last week about part of the cost issue in healthcare is our scope of practice rules. And right now, you're required to see a doctor for a whole host of things that potentially a nurse practitioner could do. But that doctors are so intent on protecting their territory, all professions are like this, that if we revise some of those scope of practice rules and let people other than MDs, DOs do some of these things, that could bring down costs.
I'm actually all for that, and as long as they don't price fix me. Don't pay a nurse practitioner who doesn't have this. And this is with all due respect. I've trained as a nurse practitioner my whole life, but they didn't spend 4 years, every other night on call in a residency, getting more experience and being exposed to more patients. They didn't spend 4 years in medical school.
Well,
but,
I kind of like that idea because you're saying then as the patient, I have the
Yes.
choice to go see
If you
a
wanna
nurse
see
practitioner
yes.
and pay less.
Absolutely.
I think that's fair.
That's fair. That's all. I'm for as much free market involvement in this as possible, right? I think that's a great thing. And I also think you'd see nurse practitioners wouldn't be able to charge as little as they might want to because then their malpractice is going to go up, right? If they have independent practice, right? So that's going to change. So let the market work. Let people choose. And I think the other part of this is reinsurance. 17 states use waivers called 1332 waivers, and they use reinsurance to pool this sort of high risk kind of stuff. And that would be, like I said, $10 a month, give or take. Lowers premiums about 10 to 40% without taxpayer bailouts. So I really think there's a way to do this. The Republicans, I think, have some general ideas. They need to have people who know more about the numbers than me help them put that together. There are people at Heritage and others who have figured that out. I hope that we hear those arguments. I really do. And we're going to ask Congressman Alford when he's with us in a little bit whether or not, that those kind of discussions are going on.
It's one of those kind of debates, and we sort of heard it sort of related on, I guess, nutrition is a healthcare issue. The debate over SNAP benefits, even where they talked about, well, should we fine tune this? You shouldn't be able to get Twinkies and Lay's potato chips with your SNAP card, but, healthy produce and even prepackaged meals and all that. But there was another debate there whether it should go this far or this way or that way, and who makes the ultimate decision on that?
Yeah, well,
the
I don't
states
believe
or the feds
does anyone, Stephanie, who calls themselves a conservative, a true conservative, does anyone believe that we should have liberty without accountability? Does anyone believe that? If you do things that are known to be self-destructive, and not taking hormone therapy is not self-destructive, other than you don't feel good. That's different than smoking or eating donuts and big gulps all day. Those are two different things. You created a straw man there. Those are different things. Not taking hormone therapy is not necessarily harmful. You just don't feel good, right? Now, my comment yesterday was it's not as bad and as evil as people are saying. So, but I mean, I'm for accountability. So what happens? So maybe let's follow your logic. The government shouldn't have a role, nor should an insurance company, in deciding whether you pay more for your catastrophic policy, because they say, look, if you want an affordable catastrophic policy, I want to check your cholesterol levels. I want to check testing, urine testing or hair testing for whether you smoke or not. Okay, I want to know that. And, and if you don't, I'm going to give you a break on your insurance. If you do, what's wrong with that? That's free market, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's free market.
But at some point, somebody's deciding what's good and what's bad.
you do that when you shop. You like a good shoe or a
But
bad shoe.
I'm shopping. I'm saying the government, whoever's putting in the regulations about what.
Yeah.
So you're saying the insurance companies would decide?
Yeah, let them decide it. Yeah.
Maybe that's fair.
Right. And let them reward more healthy behavior.
So let's give more power to the insurance companies?
No, yeah, but let them be competitive. Let them be competitive. Don't have the government subsidizing them. That's my point. The government shouldn't subsidize them.
I think that's where Trump's headed. I think Trump
Yeah.
is, and especially with
But he's
middle
only
people.
talking about Obamacare recipients. I want it for everyone because most of the people listening to this program are not Obamacare recipients. They're paying the lug for the subsidies going to the insurance companies who pay campaign donations and lobby extensively to maintain their incestuous relationship with the politicians. That's what I'm arguing for.
Well, and I think you've got that too with respect to your food, right? If you suddenly SNAP benefits, you can't buy Twinkies or you can't buy soda or whatever. You got folks who are saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!"
Yeah, right. Or eyelashes. Can't get
What
through.
about the parallels between, if you're talking about insurance, health insurance, and auto insurance industry? You know, it all comes down with insurance. You got Insurance 101 is sort of good risk versus bad risk. And if you're, you want full coverage insurance on your 2025, top of the line F-250, as opposed to the other guy who's got a 2001 Honda Civic, who's going to, the industry looks at the risk, see who's high risk, who's low
And I
risk.
said when we lived up in Northeast Missouri, I'd had enough deer hits. My Farm Bureau friend and agent at that time said, "Randy, we're going to have to cancel you unless you raise your deductible." I said, "Okay, I'm sorry. I spend a lot of time on the road, and I've hit some, not me particularly, my family, kids. Okay, so I'm clearly at high risk for you have to pay more claims. It makes sense. I need to suck it up and pay a little bit more. I don't have a problem with that." We've gotten to this point in America where suddenly it's like, I want to do what I want to do. And when something goes south because of my behavior, I want John and Stephanie and Drake and everyone on Wake Up Missouri family to pay for it. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And I'll vote for politicians who will extract from their productivity to pay for it. That's an even better proposition. I'm liking that. That's pretty good. I like that. Got to stop it. Got to stop it. Not good. Hey, measles is now coming back in Canada. We need to talk about that because it connects with our whole discussion about immunization. Stay tuned for Make Missouri Healthy Again.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Of two countries and vaccination status. Since the COVID-19 vaccine missteps along the way occurred, I think the whole issue around vaccination, RFK has not done much to tamp that down, has really risen to the top of the conversation in the minds of many parents who contemplate the multiple vaccines that are recommended for their children. We see this story, Stephanie, out of Canada, where in 1998, Canada was declared measles-free. So as a country is essentially eliminated because the vaccination rates result in just the virus doesn't have anywhere to knock on the door and have it being opened, immune system-wise. You reach these what's called herd immunity with enough people either having had it or in the case of like measles, mumps, rubella kind of a deal, measles-free because people get vaccinated enough. Well, in 1998, Canada was declared measles-free. Well, in recent years in Canada, as in the U.S., vaccination rates have lagged, and now it turns out that Canada has lost its measles elimination status. So that's what you go from measles elimination. It's not a problem because everyone's getting vaccinated with a disease like measles. Polio sort of is in that same category. To now they've lost that. They've had 5,100 measles cases recorded. There was an outbreak there that began about a year ago, and they've had 5,100 measles cases since. And they'll be able to reestablish that elimination status if they can interrupt that for at least 12 months and sort of break that chain of transmission. And so it's called a very unfortunate event by a preventive medicine expert at Vanderbilt. And it's a ringing alert, says Dr. Schaffner, that, we got to do better to persuade parents and talk to them about the consequences of that. It's hard to connect those dots, though. We just got done with a very libertarian conversation. I want to do what I want to do. Leave me alone. Absolutely okay with that. But when it comes to vaccination and things like that, and since this disease is so contagious and it can be deadly, it certainly can hospitalize children. It can lead to long-term problems. Remember the outbreak in Texas earlier this year that led to 2 unvaccinated kids dying? So they're spreading in Arizona, Utah, South Carolina. And I think we're now flirting with that, losing measles elimination status. But you think about it. I don't want to get my kid vaccinated because, hey, I haven't heard about measles. Most kids are vaccinated, but I don't want to take my kid to have that. I want my kid to take any risk that may or may not be there. I think it's essentially, it's not zero, but it's darn close. And so at what point do we say, I'm going to be a part of the American public protecting one another by getting vaccinated, by having my kid vaccinated. And that's generally been the social contract that Americans have agreed to do. Just like we all agree to go through TSA because we trade a little bit of our liberty for security. I'd really like to take that energy drink with me through the TSA checkpoint, but I can't if I want to get on a plane because someone may have some flammable liquid in that can that comes from, Cotter or whatever. And I don't want to do that. Right? So we've traded throughout our history. We've traded liberty for security. This is, I think, a medical security issue. And so when it comes to this vaccine in particular, I think it's one that I would encourage people to think about because you take a little bit of a pinch. I don't have measles, allergies. Are you? And in behalf of everyone's health. Because if not, maybe that kid and the kid next to them and the kid next to them and the other kid next to them won't get vaccinated and they travel and they get measles and then your kid gets measles. So
I remember our era. We got a lot of vaccinations that are no longer given, smallpox and polio and all that stuff.
Right. I don't know, just something to think about. It's a good social question to have and to think about. What do y'all think? 573-874-9390. State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick in a dust-up with the governor. That comes up in a few. Stay tuned.
We were always open to sitting down to negotiate and talk through how to reduce healthcare costs. It's a crisis for the American people. The costs have skyrocketed. It's the Democrats who put us into this scenario. Remember, they're the ones that created the ACA. We call it the Unaffordable Care Act, because that's exactly what's been yielded. Since 2010, since they put it into law, premiums have skyrocketed. Some estimates 60% overall, and they're
Well, that's Speaker Mike Johnson trying to be a watchdog on your pocketbook when it comes to your premiums, your out-of-pocket maxes, your inaccessible, obstructive, rationed health care, and it's costing you more and more and more. Well, we're talking with a watchdog on the taxpayer's dime. His name is Scott Fitzpatrick. He is the state auditor for state of Missouri. Welcome in, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Thanks for joining us on Wake Up Missouri.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing good. Hey, I understand you and the governor need to sit down and have a beer and work a couple things out. You have a little dispute with the governor and his administration.
Oh, I don't have any disputes with the governor. We're, I was with Governor Keogh on Monday, and he's doing a great job, and I couldn't be more proud of him as our governor. And I think you're probably referring to the Department of Revenue, which does roll up to the governor. But really, listen. We had to file a lawsuit against the Department of Revenue relating to an audit we're doing. And it really relates to a long-standing disagreement between the auditor's office and the Department of Revenue that long predates Governor Keogh's time as governor and my time as auditor about what records the auditor's office has access to during an audit. And the Department of Revenue has long taken the position that they're not going to share tax return documents with the auditor's office, which is an important set of records for us to access in certain types of audits. So we don't need to see tax returns in every single audit we do. But when we're looking at tax credit programs like the Missouri Works program, which is one of the largest expenditures of state funds that we make every year, and for those that aren't familiar with it, which is probably most people, the tax credit program is essentially an economic development tool that allows businesses to keep a lot of their withholding tax. So when they withhold money out of employees' paychecks, they're supposed to remit that to the state. When there are new jobs created, sometimes they can work a deal out with the Department of Economic Development that allows them to keep those tax revenues instead of remitting them to the government in exchange for making investments that result in new jobs in the state.
So you're trying to
make sure.
Are you trying to make sure that they are conforming to the rules of the road and not, for instance, saying that they're hiring someone, getting that tax and keeping it, and maybe not hiring? Is that what you're looking at? Just making sure there's not fraud in that program?
Sure. Yeah. We're statutorily charged with reviewing the tax credit programs for the state and looking at what the economic benefit to the state of Missouri and to the local entities are. As a result of those tax credit programs. That's a law that exists. There's also a law that specifically says that the auditor should have access to the tax returns of the state so long as it relates to the audit work that the auditor is doing. And so we feel like the statute's very clear. The Department of Revenue is, like I said, long taken the position that they shouldn't share tax record or tax returns, and it's become an issue where we have two audits going. One is related to that tax credit program, as I mentioned, where we want to make sure that when we're giving out hundreds of millions of dollars of tax credits, that it's actually going to the people that are receiving it or the companies that are receiving it are meeting all the requirements to qualify for it, and that they're actually generating new jobs and new tax revenue beyond the withholding taxes they're retaining. And then the other program it has to do with outlawed checks. So when somebody gets a state check, if it goes more than a year without being cashed, it becomes outlawed. It has to be replaced. There's been an explosion, almost 400% increase in the amount of these checks that have been having to be replaced for the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're looking into what's causing that. They're almost all tax refunds that have been replaced. So we're trying to determine with these issues that the check has become outlawed and then it has to be replaced. What's causing that? Why are there so many more and so many higher dollar value checks that are being reissued? And in order to do that, one of the things we need to do is look at the tax returns and determine the entities that are applying for these replacement checks what's causing that. And that's come to the tune of almost $10 million a year. So it's a lot of money, and we want to get to the bottom of why it's happening.
Now, you recently released an audit report related to another DOR process, and that has to do with, I think, overpayments in sales and use tax. And it's interesting to me because, we have a supermajority of Republicans. We have Republicans statewide, and I think there's been an increasing push to reduce red tape and to operate like a business. But what you're saying is there was a change made in 2019 in the law that was essentially supposed to help more folks get their sales and use tax overpayments back to them, but you found in the audit that actually there's processes that are hindering that, and it's making the department hold on to those payments for longer. Are you able, are we working toward a solution there? Is DOR telling you they can fix that?
Well, really, the recommendation on that one is legislative in nature. So we were, in line with pretty much every other state in allowing 5 years for overpayments to be claimed as a refund in Missouri. And then I think what happened in 2019 was there was maybe a single entity that had a very large overpayment that they identified that was more than 5 years old. And it was enough in terms of the amount of that they hired a lobbyist to go to the legislature and convince them to extend that, that period from a 5-year period to a 10-year period so that they could then file for a refund and claim that overpayment. But what that ended up doing is it created a new administrative burden on the Department of Revenue to try to manage 10 years worth of overpayment data instead of 5 years worth of overpayment data. And so as a result of that, the state's holding over 800,000 overpayments. Before that, it was about 400,000. So it's doubled the amount of overpayments. But the reality is that even with this extended period, 97.5% of the overpayments are being claimed within 5 years still. So what we've found is that extra 5-year period is creating a significant administrative burden for the Department of Revenue, but it's not really resulting in a meaningful increase in the amount of overpayments that are being returned to taxpayers. And so really it's one of those, is the juice worth the squeeze questions that the legislature needs to answer. It does making the Department of Revenue hold these things for 10 years make more sense to get that extra 2.5% of refunds? You're talking about a difference of, I think in the first 5 years when we looked at it, there was like $80 million of refunds claimed versus if you go out to 10 years, it was $82 million. So it was a $2 million difference, over 5 years. So that's really a question for the legislature. We wanted to make sure they were aware of it. When you make a policy change based on the issue of one individual entity that had an issue that was big enough for them that they hired a lobbyist to get the law changed, I think it's worth reflecting on after the fact. Did that change really benefit very many people, or was it something that's really creating a lot more work with very limited benefit on the backside?
That state auditor Scott Fitzpatrick joins us on Wake Up Missouri. I'm Randy Tobler, Stephanie Bell, Drake Whitman, and John Marsh here on Wake Up on a beautiful Wednesday morning.
Scott, how big a challenge is it for you, even working with state elected officials of the same party, when your auditors have to do a deep dive and look at things being moved around, like the millions that the state treasurer didn't put into general revenue in reference to the I-70 funds? Is it a challenge not to end up with a confrontational relationship with members of your own party?
Well, the way I look at this is that, especially, for the governor and for others, I mean, state government is a very big organization, and it doesn't matter. I don't care if I'm the governor or who the governor is. There are going to be issues that you can't. I mean, there's no one person that's going to be able to identify and resolve all of the issues that exist in a 50,000 person, business like the state of Missouri. And so I look at my role as, trying to, we have to call balls and strikes regardless of who's at bat, right? And the reality is we're in a state where most of the time the people I'm auditing are also Republicans. But that can't affect my duty to tell the people we're auditing as well as the public what we find that is an issue. And I think it just goes to how we communicate about it. I think that all of these other statewide are doing a good job. They're working very hard. A lot of times the things that we find are very nuanced issues, like the I-70 interest issue. I'm sure that nobody listening to this cares very much about where the interest revenue from the investments in the I-70 fund is deposited. It's a very specific issue relating to state law. But yeah, I mean, so the reality is that they all know that that I'm trying to, I try to let them do their job, respect the job that they're doing. They understand that I have a job to do as well. And there are times where we may disagree on an audit finding or something like that, but we try to still work together and not let those things get in the way of us being on the same team when it comes time to, go to the ballot and work on elections together.
Now, you had a big campaign announcement this week. You kicked off your re-election campaign. That's no surprise. But I think after last Tuesday's elections, what we saw, I think a lot of folks have concerns about the midterm elections. What we saw in New Jersey and in Virginia is that the folks at the top of that ticket really mattered, and we didn't get the Republicans turned out like we needed to. Are you feeling the pressure as the only person at the top of the ticket to try to, obviously we're going to elect Republicans, but we do have some close top of the ballot, I think, could affect seats down ballot. Are you feeling the pressure? Tell us about your reelection campaign.
Well, I wasn't, but now I am, Stephanie. Geez. I don't know. I think was it like last week or the week before? Tobler said I wasn't very exciting. Was that? I think when you guys had Fawn on. So I don't know. I may need to get on a one-on-one with Dr. Tobler. He can tell me how to be more exciting.
Did I say you weren't exciting? I don't know. I think maybe it's the job description isn't that exciting. Not you. You're a very exciting guy. Right? Yeah.
I think I'm pretty exciting, but I can understand that talking about where the interest is deposited from the I-70 fund might not get a lot of people super.
I've seen you speak. You're actually a good speaker. It's the job is not one of those super splashy marquee gigs, but it's very, very important, and we've learned that this morning, and we thank you for that.
Well, I think it goes back to there's going to be there's going to be some ballot issues up there, right?
Yeah.
Abortion's going to be on the ballot again. There's a good chance there's going to be paid sick leave. We may end up with congressional redistricting referendum. So there's going to be a lot of attention. The election when you don't have a U.S. Senate seat running alongside the auditor is generally a lower turnout election. That's just the reality of the situation. But there's going to be some issues, and we have to work hard. So I'm going to do everything I can, given the limitations of how excited people can get about who the auditor is. But I'm going to do everything I can to drive turnout on our side so we can not only win my race, but
there he
get
is.
on the ballot.
The auditor, Scott Fitzpatrick, making auditors exciting again. Scott Fitzpatrick, thank you very much.
The greatest audit podcast in the world he hosts. Right? All
right, we'll talk to you later. Thank you, sir. All right. All right. Touche. Back with more Wake Up after this.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
We have to talk about, Stephanie, about this story that there are people on Missouri's roads who, well, maybe not as many anymore, that couldn't speak the English driving a big semi.
We have a lot of folks in the industry who are in the Wake Up BAM, and they tell us this. We get to where we're going on the loading docks, and these people don't speak any English, and we've had several deaths on Missouri roadways with truckers who we've learned are illegal and who potentially have English speaking problems. And I think what we know is the federal government stopped enforcing these English fluency requirements under Obama, but that. We've seen more and more. What was it, Florida? There was a big accident, and then we had one right here in Columbia, Missouri. So it looks like the State Highway Patrol has been cracking down, and they said as of October 21st, they've pulled almost 500 commercial drivers have either been cited or pulled off Missouri's roadways. That's a lot. And you're wondering, beyond like getting to the loading dock and not being able to speak any English, roadway signs? Like if you don't know English.
Yeah.
How are you reading the signs?
I wonder how they're finding these people. Is it maybe at a way station or something? I wonder how they're identifying that.
Maybe if you don't read the signs and you're going the wrong way, or you're in a traffic accident, then
we haven't heard about, those kind of incidents. I wonder, they must have some. I guess when you pull into a station to get your truck weighed, that I think they still do that, right?
Well, like the high-profile accident on I-70 at Columbia with the illegal immigrant trucker who hit and killed the two women in the U-Haul.
And like you mentioned, we saw the guy that made the U-turn right in the middle of a 70-mile-an-hour freeway down in Florida. Happened out in California. There was another one that killed a few people.
Yeah, and other than these isolated incidents, I don't think we knew the full extent of the problem. But the fact that they've cited and pulled off the roads almost 500 people so far. Think about how many more are probably out there. I didn't realize the full extent of the problem here in Missouri. That seems quite significant to me.
So Captain Scott White with the patrol said, how we define sufficient English proficiency for the drivers is, can our officers effectively communicate with them? It's a very common sense test, right? What that means is, can they understand and reply to official inquiries? Can they read and comprehend highway signs and signals? Can they complete those necessary logs and records? So they have opportunities at various points in the interaction where they interact with the system.
And you have to wonder. They have to take a couple of written tests, and like now you almost have to be an apprentice for a minute and be trained for these. So how are they getting these licenses if they don't speak any English? Can we stop them before they ever get on the roads?
I don't know. I guess, we've heard that sometimes other states are issuing these licenses, right? Mm-hmm. And then they're on our roadways, and that's problematic. When we come back, we talk with Congressman Mark Alford. Will it be a rubber stamp by the House on the Senate continuing res or not? We'll ask it.
As America
Alford, who we don't know. Congressman Alford, are you in D.C.? Are you sitting in an airport in Kansas City waiting to get to D.C.? Where are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm actually in my office. I got here yesterday. I wanted to make sure that I could get here in time, and I'm also on the whip team. So I've been contacting other members, getting a gauge of how they were going to vote. It looks pretty good right now. I think we're going to vote 4 or 5 o'clock Columbia time, and we should have the government back open.
All right. Well, that's what it's good to hear you say that, because there's been some speculation that maybe it wouldn't be a rubber stamp on the. Is the media just filling up a 24-hour news cycle here? Yeah.
They've got to have something to talk about. Look, this has gone on long enough. The vast majority of Republicans, and I think even some Democrats, agree that the Schumer shutdown did not work. They held the American people hostage. They put their head in the vice and were slowly squeezing it. And I think the last turn on the flights being delayed and all the chaos going on with our air traffic control system was it. America's had enough. They saw through this. They did not win. We're not spiking the football, though. This is not like a victory dance for us. We've got our work to do. The government will stay open until January 30th. And during this time, we're going to work overtime, basically, even working Friday of next week. I know that's not a big deal when people hear, well, you should be working 5 days a week. I agree with that. The problem is members who live out in Oregon and California, that means they really can't go home. They could, but it'd be go there, stay a few hours, and turn back around. And so we are going to be working feverishly to make sure we get the 9 remaining appropriation bills done and get back to regular order. That's what the Democrats did not want. They wanted these huge omnibus bills, and we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to cut our spending.
Is it possible, Congressman Mark Alford, for this moment, to take this moment when health care has, as it should, bubble to the top of the public conversation, is it possible that we can return the power and the money to the people? Your colleague, Congressman Tim Burchett, said, hey, Donald Trump said it. Why don't we just give people their money? Not just Obamacare people. Let's restore major medical options. Let's restore, paying cash for the things that really shouldn't be insured. Let's totally upset this system in all the right ways for the right reasons for every American.
I'm totally in agreement with that. I think the American people have gotten used to the failures, actually, of Obamacare. It was never intended to work. It was intended to get America on universal health care, the vision of Hillary Rodham Clinton and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, to be a socialized country, much like a European style of government. And we're not going to do that. And so, members of Congress are supposed to be on Obamacare. We don't have a Cadillac health care plan, contrary to public opinion. That is a misnomer, but it sucks so badly that Leslie and I got off on it. We're on a Medi-Share type program, and we negotiate our prices for health care, and you pay cash, basically. And it's sometimes half the cost of what you would pay if you were going through the insurance companies. Look, the insurance companies were getting these subsidies all along. I don't think the American people realize this. And it just the subsidies paid in were not covering the full cost of the premium increases by the insurance company. Something is wrong, and it needs to be fixed. And we're going to have a hand in that, and I believe it's going to be a bipartisan approach. It's got to be at this point, but we're in the majority, so we're going to have, I think, more sway on how this ends up. And I think in the end it will be a better product for the American people.
I hope so.
Talk to us about this hemp issue. There's a prohibition on hemp in the spending package that caused a little bit of a dust up in the Senate. You think that will cause any sort of issues in the House?
I don't think so. Look, I've talked to the hemp people. I've talked to the marijuana people. I know that there's kind of a rivalry there. I do know there have been abuses by some people in the hemp industry with the packaging and products that are making their way into the public through, I think, illicit means. That's not been fully regulated, and I think that's a big part of the issue, and especially when it gets to kids. So this part of the 2018 Farm Bill is being reined in now, and I'm not saying that it couldn't change in the future, But for now, I think some action is going to be taken. This is going to make it through. This is not a poison pill that's going to stop us from reopening the government.
That's Congressman Mark Alford. He joins us on Wake Up Missouri, and back in D.C., ready to take that pivotal vote.
Talk to us about the long term, Congressman. You know, you potentially, it looks like this is going to get signed into law. What happens down the road after January?
Well, immediately we start, I think I mentioned working longer hours. We're going to be here next Friday. That was scheduled to be a day off. I'm not privy to Steve Scalise, who's the leader. He sets what goes onto the House floor. I know one thing we will be taking up, I'm 95% sure of it, is one of the acts, including mine, the Pelosi Act, to ban individual members of Congress and their spouses from trading individual stocks. There's several bills out there. I think they'll all meld into one. Ours is the Pelosi Act. Senator Hawley has the companion in the Senate. And I think there's an appetite, bipartisan, and the majority of Americans agree that individual members of Congress should not be coming up here to Congress to get rich off of insider information. There's some other legislation that's going to be moving forward, but my priority and that of Tom Coles, who's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee on which I sit, is to get these remaining 9 appropriation bills done. That is the constitutional authority of Article 1. That's why we're here, is to fund the government. And that's why I'm so excited. You know, I've been here almost 3 years, and we started out with the debacle of taking 15 votes to get Kevin McCarthy elected speaker, and then he gets fired 8 months later for basically supporting a continuing resolution. We are finally moving forward now with regular order, getting our appropriation bills done, and I'm hoping that this shutdown that we just experienced sent a message to everyone in Congress that we have to get the spending done by the end of September. That is our deadline, the end of the fiscal year.
Let's ask the question of how Congressman Alford, changing to the political side here, how do you politically process what happened in the elections in New York City, Virginia, and New Jersey?
Well, look, I think we have to realize that these were not Republican strongholds. These are Democrat strongholds, and Democrats won. That's fine. However, I think we would be sorely remiss if we do not recognize the dissatisfaction by some Americans in how things are going in America. I think that we are on the right track economically. You hear this term bandied about affordability. I think that's a new term for equity, actually. We want costs to come down. We do not want deflation, though. Deflation can sometimes be more harmful than inflation. I think what this administration is concentrating on doing, and it's been successful to some degree, is bringing down the rate of inflation. It reached almost 40-year record highs under the Biden administration. And so we're going to see prices increase on some items each year. That's how it works. The administration is concentrating on bringing down the rate of inflation while also increasing our wages in America, bringing manufacturing back to America, good-paying jobs, boosting our wages, and that's going to make things more affordable for the American people.
Well, communication is what brought you to the fore in Kansas City and Western Missouri, and that's what's led you to the positions on committees that you have, and you communicate well. Is it time for Congressman Alford and other smaller government-minded people to say maybe prices could come down if we were the lower regulated economy and we took the burden off of business people? Maybe prices could come down without a recession.
You're absolutely right. That's one of the things we're trying to do with the beef industry right now. We've got a bill called it has to do with the Stockyards Act that's sorely outdated. It's called the A+ Act, and it's going to allow smaller livestock market associations, auction houses, to also take part in beef processing to compete with the big guys, the 4 or 5 big slaughterhouses now, one owned by the Brazilians and one owned by the Communist Chinese, that are really controlling and choking our supply of beef and swine. And so common sense things like that, I think people can get behind to make sure that our prices come down so that American people can get the protein they need.
Congressman, final question. We had a story the other day on a cop who was in hot water with the judge for inappropriate attire during a FaceTime thing. We said at the time, we need to ask the congressman, quote, did you always wear pants at the TV anchor desk?
Long pants? I always had outer garments on. Now, here's the little thing. My bosses, I usually didn't wear a tie because I told my bosses in the morning, I said, who wears a tie in the morning? No one wants to see a guy in a tie. But they also don't want to see a guy in the bathrobe. So I wore an open collar, and I would wear jeans. And one time my boss came down the street and said, what are you wearing jeans for? And I said, well, nobody sees under the desk. So then we started doing standing presentations in front of this big screen, this big video screen.
Yeah.
And so I had I went and bought a pair of oversized slacks. So when I stood in front of the big screen, I would put the slacks over my jeans. I've always
Put that in the column of something a woman would.
Good.
Yeah, put that in the column of something a woman would never do.
That's a good one. That's a good.
Some pants on.
Yeah, well, that's why you're a congressman and I'm a talk show host, because I wear a tie occasionally in the morning. I don't know. It just makes me feel better that way. Congressman Alford, thank you very much for weighing in on many of the big pressing issues of the day. Good luck as you take that vote, maybe into the wee hours of the morning. We hope not, because it sounds like you have a lot of work to get up tomorrow and do.
Thank you. I think we'll have this done by early evening at the very latest.
Oh, good.
Okay.
All right. Good to hear. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
All righty. You too.
I'm with him. Usually I don't have heels on in the morning. Usually I have house shoes. I got some stuff to do today, so I got some heels on
there
today,
you go. You do.
No one sees under the desk.
I don't know. Once in a while, a tie in the morning just feels good. But
never.
That's just me. All right. Does anyone out there wear a tie at work anymore? 573-874-9390. John, what's up?
Break out the batting helmets. It's the attack of the falling iguanas.
A tale we can't wait to hear.
It's Wake Up
November snow along the Great Lakes creating problems as far into the deep south. Falling iguanas. Florida folks being warned of the hazard of iguanas falling from trees as the reptiles become paralyzed by the cold. Freezing temps predicted for the top third of Florida as far south as Gainesville. Weather experts say the reptiles become sluggish when temperatures drop below 50 and shut down altogether when they are lower than 40. In January, a man taking part in an outdoor yoga session in Miami was hit in the head and injured by a falling iguana. And now, Juan Perez and his son decided to take a 4-foot-long iguana they found laying motionless in their backyard into their suburban Jacksonville home, and you can see where this is headed. The iguana, who the kids named Peppy, quickly warmed up after being placed by a space heater. Peppy promptly attacked the family chihuahua, terrorized the cats, and ate all the cat food and left a large quantity of lizard poop all over their brand new carpeting.
Oh, my.
Juan, for his part, told the animal control officer that he would plan a barbecue as a final solution. So there you go.
Now, Drake, you've kept reptiles, no?
My mom had an iguana when I was a baby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that is a real thing, by the way. Like that.
Yeah.
Iguanas falling, it's one of the funniest things ever because they just fall and they sit there and you think they're dead and then they just get up and walk away or go right back to where they fell. So.
And there's some places in the South, especially in Florida, where they are so thick with iguanas, the pest control guys will come out and shoot them.
Wow. Huh. Target practice on iguanas, huh?
That's it.
Well, they use 22s probably?
I don't know if they're the high-powered
or a shotgun.
airball guns.
Oh, yeah.
Those kind of ones.
We had an iguana that got out we had this large rec room, just sort of a playroom for the kids. Somehow it got out of the aquarium we kept it in. I don't know how. And Helene called me all in a panic because she finally cornered the iguana. Of course, the iguana ran. She grabbed the tail. It fell off. and she's left holding part of the tail as it's wiggling.
Yeah, so when you keep
and it'll regrow, though.
Yeah, well, that's actually, especially for bearded dragons, which is probably the most common lizard that people keep nowadays. It's actually like it could kill them because that's where a lot of their fat is stored.
Yeah.
So it is dangerous. The thing with iguanas, though, is that they will whip their tail at you, and they have been known to break legs, and they can be dangerous.
Oh, it's a significant. Yeah, the tail's a weapon. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, so she had this little. It wasn't the big fat part of the tail. It was just only about the tiny slim part, maybe about
the tail end,
4 or 5 inches of tail, and and it's wiggling there. She's freaking out. We had a bearded dragon too. They're a little more. You have to keep a heated rock and stuff for them, though, right? I mean, beardeds are a little more delicate.
Stephanie, didn't you have a lizard at one point?
I don't anymore, but yes.
What'd you have?
I had a. What are the different kinds of lizards?
Geckos.
Nope.
Bearded dragons.
Nope. I didn't have a chameleon. I had it's a common one. I don't know.
Not a caiman.
No.
Yeah.
A caiman?
I had a leopard gecko. That's what I had.
A leopard
okay,
gecko.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
You had to have a heat lamp and.
Yeah. Next time we get a lizard, I'm naming him Chuck.
Chuck the lizard.
Chuck Schumer, the lizard.
There you go. That's good.
He sort of has that lizard appearance, I'm just
saying. A text from Dan who says, when I was stationed at 29 Palms, California, Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, that my company commander had a sidewinder rattlesnake on a jar behind his desk.
Gross.
What? A sidewinder rattler?
Yep, apparently so.
Well, I know people
in the high desert.
There's people that keep tarantulas too,
No, thank you.
I don't know. I like spiders, but I wouldn't get into the poisonous kind. I like spiders. They're sort of fun. They're beautiful. If you look at a spider on a web, what a beautiful creation of God. Beautiful thing. Yeah? No? Drake says no spiders. Okay. Hey, let's talk a little education when we come back with Susan Pendergrass. Some good report card for the state schools. Wednesday edition of Wake Up Missouri. Thanks for being with us. Make sure that you stay with us on our Wake Up Missouri YouTube channel, of course, on Facebook as well. I don't think we've said anything to get thrown off of there, although we try mightily every day. We try. Oh, Lord, do we try. We can't quite make it happen, though. We're still on Facebook and YouTube, right?
For now, I don't know. We were talking about, vaccines and all that. I didn't know if it got taken down yet.
Well, let's see if Dr. Susan Pendergrass, Director of Research at the Show Me Institute, can get us thrown off the air with saying something provocative and offensive. Let's see how that's working out.
Never.
How you doing, Susan? I don't see you doing that, but you never know. I don't know. Hey, I wanted to talk.
Good, thank you.
We need to talk with you about, all kidding aside, we need to talk about the recent report card that DESE, sent out on the schools in Missouri. What's the skinny?
Well, they have a system that's called an accountability system, and it's a bunch of acronyms. It's the Missouri School Improvement Program, MSIP 6. And from that, you get annual performance reports, or APRs, and they just released the APRs and the test scores. And I have never been a fan of either APR numbers or MSIP, and I'm firmly on the record, because APR, you get a number between 0 and 100, and most people don't really know what that means. And different schools have different numbers of possible points. It's like the percentage of the points that you got. And it's really hard for a parent to understand. I would prefer that they just give every school and district a letter grade, because everyone knows what a B is and what a D is. Mm-hmm. But they put out these APR scores, and then, they spun it a bit. But when you look at the test scores themselves, APR scores only have less than half of the score has to do with academic performance. The other stuff is like having a school improvement plan, having it, not implementing it, like having one, and having a superintendent that's certified. So when you get down to the test score part, we are still not where we were before the pandemic and 4 or 5 years later. And we still have a real problem with, we've not hit 50% for grade level in math or reading. We never have, but we're in the 40s still. They've had a goal of getting to 50%, haven't gotten there.
Hang on. Did you say that our performance is less than 50% in a critical academic silo?
Yep. Reading and English language arts and math. Yeah,
wow.
We're in the low 40s, 42, 43% on grade level, what's also called proficient.
Oh, my
God.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and we don't really seem to be making a lot of progress. And when you look deeper, the differences between groups of students, like between, say, black students and white students, or between low-income students and non-low-income students, are massive. And we have these massive achievement gaps. And I think they put out press releases that say 90% of our kids go to schools that met or exceeded expectations. Again, really hard to understand. But when you look at the scores themselves, we're not getting anywhere. And there should be a press release that says, the house is on fire. Mm-hmm. And instead we get these sort of sunny, everything's probably pretty okay. We're getting back to where we were before the pandemic. And we weren't in great shape before the pandemic, to be clear. But so that's what's going on. We have a website, Most School Rankings, and I just downloaded the full detailed data so we can update that, which I think is an easier way to see how an individual school or district is doing. But, basically we're still trying to claw our way back to pre-pandemic levels.
For so many Missourians and Wake Up Missouri listeners, I think they think back to the big defining word was the MAP tests, mm-hmm. and how those are.
Yeah, these are MAP tests. Yes.
Well, and the whole side of that, and like the question Randy asked earlier, what about are they dumbing down the testing? And do they say about that?
Yeah, so the MAP tests, again, there's so many acronyms. There's MAP, which is Missouri Assessment Program, the APR, and the MSIP. But the MAP is the test. Now, when you compare MAP test scores to the one test that is given in every state in the country called the Nation's Report Card, our students do much better on MAP than they do on that test, on the NAEP test. So we have a like an honesty gap, where our test is easier. And we are one of the few states that has lowered standards. Virginia just took their state testing and just literally raised the bar to what is proficient or not. They just raised the score you have to get. And Missouri has not done any of that. Now, I know that they're as always, looking to revise the test. They've revised it so many times that it's even hard to look at scores over time, but they're looking to revise the test again. And there are some districts that are doing their own thing testing-wise, but, you know, I don't know if they're lowering the bar, but even with that bar on the MAP test, only about 43% of our kids are on grade level.
Talking with Susan Pendergrass, Director of Policy at Show Me Institute, an expert in public policy and especially education policy. So I got to ask you a question here. So we're talking about however you define proficiency. That's a really important question, and I don't know how that is. But let's assume that's a reasonably high bar. Let's assume that, which may or may not be true. If you were to take a standardized test that most reasonable education experts would say is the right standard, the right bar in English and math proficiency, and you administered it to an American ninth grader in 1965, an English, a United Kingdom ninth grader in 1965, a German ninth grader, and a Chinese ninth grader in 1965, compared with those same individuals on the same test, equivalent test today, what would the disparities be?
Okay, so basically what's happened internationally is that we've just done flat and other countries have just leapfrogged up over us. So not so much that we've gone down on our test scores, we've been flat. There is a test that was started being given in 1972 by the Federal Department of Education called the long-term trend. And so it has and they never changed the test. And they give it to 9-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and 17-year-olds. The scores on the latest round of that test were below what they were in 1972, or the same. So we had been gaining ground. And to be honest, No Child Left Behind, it was a lot of testing, but we were gaining ground, and SAT scores are going up and ACT scores are going up. And we have now gone back down to the same level of learning we were at in the 70s, which you would think with so much technology and, like all this work on how to teach. And we are at the same point we were in 1972. And then meanwhile, China and other countries have just gone up over us.
But the rest of the world isn't staying still. They're advancing educationally.
That's right. So you see, like, Estonia has gone up and over us, and Turkey has gone up and like all these countries, while we've been at the same point, all these other countries have surpassed us. And I think we're one of the few countries, if you can picture it this way, where a young person today, say an 18-year-old today, is not doesn't do better than like a 68-year-old person. In most countries, you've gotten better over time. And ours, it's the flip side of that, where like our young adults are less literate than older people.
This is one of the weird things that keeps Randy up at night, because I keep hearing discussions about how America shouldn't make pocket combs and flags. Let China do that. Let other places do that. Let's do what we do. We intellectually innovate. We develop things. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, in distinction to what you're saying, I'm not sure that that's going to be true for so long if we don't have the minds doing it, which leads to the next question. Are you going to be having a sit-down with Tim Marshevsky, the new, he's called the head of AI in Missouri. I call him the AI czar, to discuss the impact of AI on education and the potential dumbing down of our students?
Well, it's probably more of a double-edged sword. Like in some cases dumbing down, but in some cases freeing up time to do more interesting stuff. So I think we don't know right now about AI. And yeah, it's getting rolled out and everyone's using it to, plan their vacations. But I don't know. We know that it's having an impact on homework. Kids don't do it anymore because they're not even really getting it assigned, because they simply use AI to do it. And it used to be that you could say, okay, kids who did homework did better on tests than kids who don't. And now that's not true anymore, because it's AI is doing the homework. But I don't really know. And this is going to be a big question for this generation. I have grandchildren. I'm really going to be curious to see what schools do about it and how they harness it for good and don't just succumb to the easy way out where we get like skills atrophying. Like no one can read a map anymore because you don't need to read a map, right? So we're going to lose skills if we just all start leaning on AI.
Well, but isn't there, I don't know, you're an educational pro. Isn't there value to I mean, I've always, remember when the calculator came around, it's like, well, we don't need to learn math and how to divide and do long division. Because why? Well, but I remember reading developmental, and I keep in touch with the neurodevelopmental science. And I thought I've heard of when it comes to the pruning of neurons and the proliferation of neurons and the connecting of neurons during those critical developmental years of adolescence and even beyond, that doing the hard work of letting those neurons do the computing has intrinsic value. Forget about whether you can do it by a calculator. Should you? I mean, that's a very weedy question, but is that a bad question? Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. We know this. And even when you had a calculator, you're supposed to learn to do the math first and then use the calculator. But yeah, I'm a little worried about our map skills and other memory skills. But you know, we're going to have to figure this thing out. AI is not going away. We're going to have to figure out how to use it in a way that's productive. Now, one good thing is that many states, including Missouri, are banning cell phones in school. And I think that that's a real plus because you can look at like test scores and other things. And when smartphones became available, test scores started going down. Now, it's not one-to-one. You can't say this is the only cause of it. There's lots of causes. But we don't need kids walking around with smartphones in their hands all day long.
Right.
And I think the places where they banned them, the kids really like it, and maybe they'll pick up a book. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Wow, what a novel idea. Well, we have to before we leave, we have to compliment the job that Stephanie's schools are doing. Ashland, right, doing pretty good, right? Stuff.
I think so.
Did they? And they don't let people have calculators. The students have calculators. I mean, cell phones.
Is that right?
No cell phones.
Well, that's
cell phones,
statewide now.
They're banned statewide. Yeah.
All right. Well, we
There's
thank you.
definitely some pockets that are really great, but folks can find out more if they just look at our website.
All right. Well, head over to showmeinstitute.org and you can learn more about the very deep dive that you need to take and know about your schools, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking a deep dive with us, Susan. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Hey, you too. When we come back, the Morning Market Report with the Morning Bell.
It's Wake Up
At the market open, let's see what's happening on the Morning Bell.
It was a mixed bag yesterday with the Dow with a pretty significant bump at up 1.18%, the S&P up 0.21%, the Nasdaq down 0.25%. As we look at the sectors, technology was down pretty big, but if you remember, they had a big bump yesterday as a result of the news about the government shutdown and other things. Up yesterday was real estate, consumer staples, energy, and health. Now, we've been talking a lot this week about home prices and, in general, about home prices. But with Trump's new 50-year mortgage, it's been of particular interest lately. This article on Fox talks about why is housing so expensive? And they said it's not what you might think. For a while there, we were talking lumber tariffs and supply chain issues and COVID things. And then, but they're saying that the experts say it's restrictive zoning, land use barriers, and financial policies, essentially red tape and government policies, not only at the federal level, but also, they said, oftentimes at the local levels. They said there are lots of barriers to new homes and to renovating homes, and they're saying that regulatory burdens really do add up to the unaffordability index. These folks said they estimated 24% of the cost of a single family home is embedded in regulations at all three levels of local, state, and federal
24%?
24% is just regulatory burdens.
A quarter.
Can you imagine?
Goodness. I'm not surprised, but the magnitude is something. Wow.
Now, when we look at Trump's policy on this 50-year mortgage, some folks are trying to kind of break down what does that actually look like. It sounds like pretty significant because most people are on a 30-year. Some people are on a 15-year. When you think, okay, if I bump that 30 out to a 50, that's got to be some pretty significant savings. But not really. When I saw this, I was kind of shocked. If someone paid $300,000 for a house and put down a down payment of about 9%, with a 30-year locked in at 6.2, your monthly payment, which is what people really care about, is $2,376 per month. With the 50-year, that only comes down to $2,182. That's really pretty insignificant, Randy.
And yet your overall debt burden and your interest burden is terrible.
You're just paying a bunch of interest. And that's what they're saying is even if you could lock that 50-year mortgage in at a 6.2, that's unlikely to happen because we were talking risk earlier with insurance companies, but you see this a lot. I mean, this is a big part of what mortgage brokers are doing when they're giving you that rate. And they said, the longer term makes you a riskier lender. And so the chief economist at Redfin said that it's unlikely that with a 50-year mortgage that you would get such a good rate. Usually get a better rate at 15. And so if you take the 50-year mortgage with a higher rate, it's a wash. It's a wash. And so it really isn't going to help bring down the price for home buyers.
Well, we're checking in on Dave Ramsey because he was in the ICU when he heard that, so we're seeing if he's still there. Just a joke.
You wonder about the mortgage brokers. Do they expect somebody, the vast majority of people who take a 50-year mortgage, to refinance once, twice, or repeatedly?
Well, it's true, yeah. Or maybe flip it if you assume houses are going to continue to go up as they traditionally have. There's options there.
Yeah.
Well, and in the article we talked about the government regulation, but in the article about 50-year mortgages, they also said, one of the primary drivers is supply. We just don't have enough supply, and that's causing the prices to be really high.
I heard the average age of the first-time home buyer is somewhere in like the late 40s or something.
What?
Rather than it's in the 40s now. Rather than it used to be in the 20s, right? People got into something early on. I don't know. Oh, Drake's going very cynically. I wonder why.
This is saying for the $300,000 house, the average down payment would be 9%, which is $30,000. I think that's the big barrier for a lot of people to entry, not that monthly payment.
Where is that down payment coming from when you can't pay the grocery and energy bills?
No kid.
Be back in a minute.
I think just local news is like the most
Okay, let's take a look at a quick clip, and I'm going to ask you about it on the other side.
Thought I heard one.
A robot?
Yeah.
Impressive.
Well, I am a Hawthorne.
You sure are. You know, your grandma and I could practically finish each other's sentences. If you're anything like her, you and I are going to make a
Some
great
robots
team.
cry.
Okay. To your point about...
Well, a little bit about Toy Story. What version? 5, 6, 7? Was it Toy Story 5 coming out?
5. Yeah.
And is there a little bit of a pushback against robotics and AI in this movie? Is that what this is about?
Yeah, I guess in the teaser they put out, Woody, Buzz, and Jesse meet a new toy that shakes things up, a high-tech frog-shaped smart tablet.
Named Lily Pad.
Lily Pad? Oh, my God. Title cards in the teaser trailer read, "The age of toys is over." Huh.
You missed the important part of it. It's the age of toys is over, question mark. So, yeah, there's intrigue.
Yeah, you know, the kids still love the simple toys.
It's supposed to explore how our favorite team of legacy toys might respond to today's world of technology.
It sounds like
it feels like you're going to like this movie.
It could be a pretty good one, yeah? And just connecting the what has been with what's coming, correct? Is that
yeah,
the
and I
theme?
think for any parent, like you know these things, right? Like, I mean, my kids all have iPads, but they still love breaking out like Lincoln Logs or like, you know, the old Marble Run. That was one I had when I was a kid. Those things are super fun. And Lego, you know, Drake is just as obsessed with Lego as my kids are that kids were 50 years ago, right? So
Yeah.
I think from a business perspective, it's about finding things that stand the test of time. But I think kids will play with a cardboard box.
They will. Yeah. When we were on our diving trip this summer, you know, now this is for the very little ones. We brought back just the simple little, you buy them at the bazaar, the little maraca, the little shakers, you know, the little maracas.
Oh yeah.
The kids love that, right? Simple, just shaker for the little 1-year-old.
Oh yeah,
from
from Melissa and Doug was always a brand that I really liked when I had younger kids, and we bought a whole box of little musical instruments from the triangle to the maracas to the little cymbals, and that was a huge. I mean, it was a little noisy. I think the grandparents wanted it to stay at my house, but no, it was super fun. But as we approach the Christmas season, I know my kids are already like, oh, can I make my Christmas list? And I'm like, go for it.
You know, I get the biggest kick out of the granddaughters who are 6 and 3 now, 3 or 4. Just all of a sudden, we'll get this Snapchat or a video, a reel on the text, just dancing. Just all of a sudden, they just dancing wildly, like doing lyrical dancing, right? I think it started with Frozen, maybe. I don't know, but there's certain Disney-esque kind of things that the little girls, they just start dancing crazily, like sometimes with no music. It's hilarious.
I know one year the big thing that was on the Christmas list was the karaoke machine. And we got lots of use out of that.
Yeah. Well, you have one who's very sort of whimsical that way, right? Isn't it?
Yes, I have a creative one.
Yeah, very
Apparently,
creative.
she wrote a play. We've been having parent-teacher conferences this week.
Yeah, how's
which
it
have
going?
Been fun.
Yeah,
pretty good.
Don't you love the comments you get about your kids?
I mean, I was really shocked to hear that my kids are a little chatty. I don't know where. I don't know where
from their father, of course.
Newsflash!
Just totally shocked. But apparently, the middle one is into writing some plays, and they acted out some of their plays in their reading and writing classes. So they're having a lot of fun and finding outlets for some of the chattiness and the creativity, I think, which is good.
No, I like that. I mean, I think that's good. And I remember one time when it was in a civics class, we got this. The teacher had just a straight line on the chalkboard at that time, and one was like right and left, conservative, liberal, you know.
Oh.
And it was like, well, here's where most of the kids are in the class. Here's where your kid is, way over. And I'm like, yes, all right, good.
I read a really detailed homework description of how you become mummified or how Egyptians did mummies.
Oh.
And I learned a lot. I was like, I didn't know all of that. That's very interesting.
If your kid's too much into that, it could be a little frightening for you. You know what I
think
mean?
it might have been like a Halloween-related assignment, I'm hoping, or history. I don't know, but it was quite
Cool.
it was grotesque. It really was. I was glad I hadn't eaten dinner yet.
Hey, Mom, did you know they put the Pharaoh's liver in a jar and
Yes!
set it on a shelf?
That was part of the description,
Yeah,
and they
wild.
like pull the other guts out of their nose or something, and then they like cover it in salt. And I learned a lot. And you leave the body out for like 30, 45 days.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. King Tut jerky. It's a favorite brand.
It's been a long time since I
They
studied.
sell it at Buc-ee's.
Well, when times
mummies.
get tough, you never know.
But they're doing a good job in Southern Boone.
And then there's Hakeem Jeffries.
You say the Supreme Court has been corrupt. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that the outrageous behavior by individual justices like Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito and the failure to have an ethical code of conduct is corrupt.
So, Stephanie, I saw this and I thought about you and the justice system and how you interact with judges and so forth. And I thought, well, the definition of corrupt is one thing. But if you disagree with the judges ideologically, is it proper to call them corrupt? And isn't this sort of irresponsible rhetoric on the part of Hakeem Jeffries? I mean, that's a serious charge when you call them corrupt.
Do we know what the latest trigger for this is? Because this came up a couple of years ago when it came out that I think there were some trips and some gifts and some other things, and they're like, oh my gosh.
It turns out that Ginsburg had done something, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think like people would like to pretend that you could, when you're in elementary school and you think your teacher lives at the school and that they're not a real person, and then you bump into them in the grocery store and you're like, oh my gosh, they're a real person. You forget that these people are real people. They have families. They had friends before they got on the court. And they have personal relationships with people. And, I'm not going to stop being friends. I don't have any hope or any aspirations to be a judge. I love being an advocate. But, so you always travel with family, friends. You get on the court. You do the same thing you've always done. Is that giving somebody a special advantage that doesn't appear before you? It's like they want this ethical code of conduct. There is a judicial ethics code. We have a lawyer ethical code, and they want something above and beyond that. But again, you're right, Randy. It would apply to everybody.
Yeah.
But I think some of this is like thinking that the Supreme Court justices don't live regular lives.
Well, I think this may have been about them putting a pause on the appeals court that ordered the Trump administration to pay out extra SNAP benefits. They were going to do some. There was one fund that they're paying out, and then there were some extra emergency funds. The administration said we can't do that till we're back in business and whatever.
Well, and the Democrats have been waging war on some of our fundamental institutions for a long time, and what they've been trying to do for a long time and saying they want to do is pack the court. And one way to try to drum up support for things like that is to say, look at these people, they're all corrupt. Now, adding more justices, I don't know, will address his problems. But yeah, I mean, it's a drumbeat, and they're trying to get us away from the Democrats did the shutdown and try to get us to some other topic. I don't think, again, this topic, we've had it before. The justices have even commented before on it. I don't see this going anywhere.
Again, amateur lawyer here, but I think most of us that look at the actions of the Sotomayors and the Ketanji Brown Jacksons of the world, to a lesser extent, Kagan, may think that with some of the statements they make, they seem more like a legislative mindset rather than a judicial, constitutional, textual mindset. I view that as an ideological miscarriage of their robe and their justice status, right? But I wouldn't call them corrupt. No. That's not corrupt. As if someone, you're paid off to make a judgment. That's corrupt, right? I get that, but. So I just thought it was just tremendously irresponsible, and I understand that political rhetoric is political rhetoric, but I don't know.
Is that Steph, I guess the question to you is, with Hakeem Jeffries, would he get his law degree like NYU or something like that? Is that a lawyer thing maybe on Capitol Hill to be more prone to be ready to criticize the high judges or not?
I mean, I think it's a Democrat thing. But again, I mean, like, look at all of the judges who are out there who we've gotten bad who conservatives are mad about.
Yeah.
And you'll hear it from your local judges, especially when they're talking contract disputes or especially family law and like divorces. If both sides walk away unhappy, you did the right thing, right? Like you're supposed to split it down the middle. And so here, the fact that you hear, just as much criticism of the judicial system from the left sometimes as the right.
Right.
We're all like, doesn't that mean that it's doing its job?
Obama did it. Trump does it, right?
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that mean that the court isn't siding with one side all the time? And that's
no, I would hold them responsible for siding with the right side all the time.
But that's
After
not the
all.
court's role. That's not the court's role.
I don't know. I hear this from lawyers. They're going to split the baby. The judge likes to split the baby. Why is that? Make a decision. Don't split the baby. Give the baby to the right side of the fence.
No, make a decision based on the law, and
then the law shouldn't be splitting babies.
And if we're looking, if you remove it from the federal level and you look at the local level, I mean, we elect our judges, in our counties here. Oftentimes, they were practicing attorneys side by, shoulder to shoulder with us in the bar, in members of the bar. Right, I'm getting to that age where I now know more judges because they're like my age. Right, these are people that we've known. They grow up in our community. We know their families. Their friends. I still don't expect the judge, even if I knew that person for however many years, or I practiced with or against them, or I still don't expect them to side with me every time. Expect them to side on whatever the law is, right?
No, wait a minute. Now your nose is growing there. Yeah, of course. If you expect them to side with you every time, that's what you do.
I want them to, but no, that's not. No, I don't.
You want
expect
them
that.
to, don't you? That's different, your expectations?
I mean, as an advocate, I always, I don't take a case if I don't think I have a good argument, right? And so, I want to win all the time.
Oh, we know
but
this.
I don't have any sort of expectation that they're going to do anything other than read what my pleading says, examine the facts, apply the law. And oftentimes, like I'm making a novel argument, it could go either way, right?
Yeah.
I think some people practice in areas where it's pretty clear what the answer should be. Not in my practice typically. And so I expect them to apply the law, just like if I know that they're friends with the other attorney, right? I mean, there are some times where I know there are close relationships there, and I expect when I show up that I'm going to get a fair shake, and it's not going to be on the basis of their relationship with anybody else or who they're friends with or who they know. It's going to be on the basis of what's before them, and I feel like I do get a fair shake.
True or false? A commonly heard phrase in law offices across the land is split the baby.
Well, I think
I'm just
First
asking.
Kings.
I mean, oftentimes you bring multiple arguments.
Yeah.
You start with your best one. You put in the whole kitchen sink. People are known to do that. And so it looks like splitting the baby because you win on the better arguments and you lose on the crummier arguments.
Yeah.
And you could
Well,
say that's
a good
splitting
point.
the baby, but it's not.
That's a good point.
It's not because the judge is trying to give you a win and someone else a win. It's because some of your arguments are stronger than the others.
You know what? My big issue about judges, though, and I mean this sincerely, I have so much empathy for judges, especially in the criminal realm, about their safety. It haunts me a lot, and these guys and gals are under a lot of threat.
And comments from folks like
Right.
Hakeem Jeffries, they are calling these people corrupt or evil or whatever.
Doesn't help the matters.
Is
No.
not helpful.
That just horrifies me. Absolutely horrifies me, the threat that the judges are under. Well, let's come back and wrap it up with some leftovers in a few.
It's
Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. That time of the program when we dust off some stuff that was at the bottom of our pile, but this shouldn't be at the bottom of our pile. I don't know if I should open this can of worms yet. Should I? Yeah. What the heck? Here it is. So this was a behind the scenes little shoot of Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, because he was with her on this tour that she's on a couple of events, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not the one you were at.
No, he was not at the one I was at.
So here's a little bit of Drake. Listen up. Listen up. This is about finding a mate.
Toughest question. I have so many children who've all found mates, but there are a lot of people close to me, a lot of people who work for us who are in that position. It's something I think about every day. And whenever I weigh in with an opinion on it, I prove only that I know very little about what the real problems are. But there are real problems in the way that men and women see each other, and the hostility and the distrust is remarkable to me. Like I grieve over it. I think someone who shares your religious faith is essential. It's really important.
Go to church. Go to the church mixers. I think really the advice is the same as I give to anybody, which is figure out what you're interested in and then go pursue that in some group setting. Like, if I were young and I was looking for a mate, I would join a book club, or I would take guitar lessons in like a group setting. You know, stuff that you genuinely like. You'll find people who have similar interests to you, and then it kind of all flows from there.
So it's interesting. Tucker Carlson says that there's a lot of hostility between men and women. I don't know. I'm young. I don't know. Is that true in the young people realm? But then they go on, and he's in the green room. She's getting the hair done and stuff, and they're talking about relationships these days. And
find me someone who can read and play the guitar.
Yeah,
I think that's what Megyn Kelly was saying.
Well, not that you're looking for a mate, but I mean, look at this. Drake, I think the last time I checked, can read, and he plays accordion. I mean, come on, does it get better than that?
I mean, come
on,
that could be the thing, Drake.
So, Drake, what are your thoughts about this? This advice from Tucker and Megyn on relationships.
It's pretty good advice.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, go do what you normally do. Go
to places where there's interest. People are interested in what you're interested in. It makes common sense to me. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I met my wife in band, right? We were both musicians.
The thing is with nowadays, a lot of the interests that a lot of people have, it's usually something that you can do at home, or like whenever you go, let's say working out. That's a big one. If you like working out, it's like a 50-50 split between women if they want to go shoot your shot with your gym crush, or don't mess with me, I'm working out right now kind of thing. So
now, wait a minute. Okay, that's a detour. So you generally agree though, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So speaking of the working out at the gym and socializing, daughter Sammy was at a gym the other day and saw one of the people that we talk to on the air occasionally. And I said, well, why don't you say hi? And she said, probably not a good idea, because sort of the unwritten gym rules are don't strike up conversations. Just do your workout. Is that true?
True.
Yeah, I mean, I'll ask people to spot
just
for
to
me.
say hi during a break between sets?
Depends on the gym.
Depends on how well you know the person. Oh. But a lot of times if I'm like at the gym, I just want to do the gym thing and leave. And I don't want to be chatting.
At the gym that I go to, a lot of people will give you tips and like talk to you that way, but normally not like,
because your
hey, how are
form's
you
bad,
doing?
Drake. Your form's bad.
Is that about his workout or about his social form?
Full extension, Drake.
We'll
Full
answer that
extension.
question tomorrow on Wake Up Missouri. Have a good one today.
Bye.